Howdy hey cowpokes, it's Conway Titty here, and welcome back to another monthly reading recap. I'm about to go into a spiel of what's been happening with my monthly reads and the audio and the video technical difficulties. So here's this little rant from me before we dive into all the books. I think I finally figured out my filming setup here. Because I film on my iPhone and I record with my computer mic, because I have an Elgato Pro cam as a webcam, and that's very lovely, but it still doesn't record in high quality. The iPhone works really well because I don't have an actual camera. So what's been happening the past months that I've been doing my book recaps have been either the audio has gone out, the video has gone out, or I'm blurry or something is happening, but I have figured out the little secret. Basically what I'm doing is I am mirroring my iPhone to my monitor here, so I can look at my monitor and I can see that I'm in focus. I can see that it's working and everything's proper now, and we can start filming these videos a lot more frequently with a lot less issues and not having to adjust a mirror 47 times without having to move things around and make sure that things aren't synced up. And that's what happened with the April monthly reads. I recorded the entire thing with the video and the audio, and 10 minutes into recording, I couldn't see that my phone completely ran out of storage, so it completely stopped filming. Yet I had all this audio, and then the audio cut out I think the audio cut out 20 minutes in as well. So it was a clusterfuck. It was an absolute clusterfuck of what's happening. But I wanted to update you guys of I figured it out. I did it, and this is how things are gonna be filmed now, where it actually looks crystal clear and pretty. And anyways, let's get into the book talk, all right? Like I said, I literally just started yapping about it, and I realized I didn't even do my intro to my video, but here we are. Thanks for sticking with me. This is the May monthly reads recap. As with every month, I do have a specific theme that I like to kind of go off when it comes to books. It keeps you away from being stuck on the same series or the same author. It really allows you to read diverse books, stories, find new favorites. I love a good theme anyways, but a book theme is even better. So for May, it is Asian American and Pacific Islander month. So I definitely read a ton of stories from AAPI authors, or the books about the main characters that has to deal with any of their stories, their life journeys. And then at the very end, I did throw in some random books, and I kind of went a little crazy on it. So I do have my AAPI section, but then I went overboard with a certain series that we'll talk about later. And how I'm gonna do it this time is I'm going to read the book description that is actually provided, whether it's on the book, on the author's websites, as the summaries on Goodreads or Fable. I'm gonna read you guys that section, and then I'm going to give you my rating for it. I've been trying to get better at the summaries, and I find it's a little bit more difficult for me because I do read a lot, and sometimes I'm like, oh, that book was shit, I completely forgot what is it about. So I at least want to give an unbiased summary of kind of what happens without spoiling the book as well. Which, if you watch some of my other videos, I do kind of fall into the spoiler aspect of some books, and I don't want to do that in the future. And if I butcher names at any point through this video, I do apologize. I really am trying my best. And also, if I'm looking to the side, I'm reading my notes here and the descriptions of stuff, so there you go. The first book that I read of AAPI month is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is a novel that delves into themes of racial diversity and appropriation within the publishing industry, blending satire and metafiction with social media elements, particularly on Twitter. The story includes June Hayward, an unsuccessful author who feels an intense jealousy towards her more successful friend, Athena Lee. And Athena is a very celebrated Chinese American author. I have to say that because it is very important in this book. After Athena's accidental death, June seizes Athena's unfinished manuscript about Chinese laborers in World War I. She edits it and publishes it under her own name using a pseudonym. If you don't know what pseudonym means, it's like a stage name, a fake name. something that's not going to show her real identity. June faces allegations of cultural appropriation and plagiarism, but the book titled The Last Front becomes an instant hit. Accusations of the plagiarism escalates, particularly on Twitter, but June manages to quash these accusations only temporarily. A new scandal arises when June publishes a novella using another piece of Athena's work, which eventually causes further outrage, as it should. June's career starts spiraling downwards, which leads to a physical confrontation with Candace, who exposes June's actions. I believe Candace was like a friend of the authors or another publisher or someone in the book world in this story. In the aftermath of this, June plans to write a fake autobiography about her relationship with Athena, intending to use her white privilege to regain public sympathy and kind of redeem her image. I rated this a 3.25 out of 5 stars, and I think I said this a lot in the review coming, but social media is the true protagonist of the story, in my opinion, and if you don't recognize at least the protagonist is social media, one of them, then you're kind of also missing the major point when it comes to the publishing world and social media world and things like that. And honestly, the amount of times that I did want to scream and shake June to tell her to put her goddamn phone down, it's like she became so obsessed with reading the comments, watching her life implode because of a bad choice. And I feel like this definitely does happen a lot in real life, whether you're getting good criticism or bad criticism. People are so obsessed with social media that it becomes extremely unhealthy, to where it's like they can't even separate reality from the fake internet world. And as someone who's been on social media since the inception of social media, but also been a content creator for 10 years now, it's crazy to me that if you've been in the industry for this long, you do see the good and bads of everything. You're literally on the flip side of everything. But at the end of the day, you also can't please everybody, and everyone's going to find something wrong with something that you do. And once you figure that out, then you're better for it. That's my little side tangent. However, I absolutely hated June, and I feel like the author wanted us to hate June because she was very annoying. She was so cringy. She was just really whiny and just overall full of self-loathing when all she had to do was literally stop checking social media. She was self-harming at this point. And then the ending of the story was a little cliche and lame in my opinion. But the book was fast-paced, so you kind of kept hanging on for the narcissistic ride. I did really love the specific and crazy details on the publishing corporations and how shitty publishing houses and things treat authors, and even just the people that work in the publishing houses, how they're treated. It's a whole behind the scenes chaotic mess, and you can go on rabbit holes and dive deeper into, but in this book it was not far off of how it actually happens in the real world. So overall, it's not too shabby, and honestly might be worth the pickup for you if you're really into that dramatic protagonist. You know, I just had a brain fart. I just realized we got through this little section for this book, and I realized I meant to say social media was the true antagonist, not protagonist. My brain is just dumb. So if I've said protagonist to anything in this book, just know in this little section, just know I meant antagonist, because June's the protagonist and she's her own antagonist, but social media is the true antagonist. I have to put that in there before y'all come for me and you're like, you're dumb, you're stupid. After that, I read Loud, Accepting Nothing Less Than the Life You Deserve by Drew Afualo. This is a book I've been wanting to read for a long time, and I listened to the audiobook of it because what better way when you're reading something about a specific person? And I've said this in my other videos. If you have the author narrate the book, listen to it from the author, because they're really going to give you the context of which parts they were writing and the influxes. So I highly recommend audiobooks that are narrated by authors when it comes to biographies or little memoirs or things that they're talking about. I rated this a 5 out of 5 because I fucking love Drew. I love everything she stands for. I believe that she's a very important matriarchal person in the 21st century. I believe she has so much influence on the world. I believe she has so much influence on female empowerment, female emotions, in terms of like, if you are stuck in a shitty situation or you're being like, so I would say brainwashed by misogyny and things, even hearing one of her videos, you may be like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And I believe that's little videos like that, even if they're like 5 seconds of her talking, some woman out there may learn something about men that she never knew. And then I also love, on the other hand, how angry men get when her videos pop up, and just how horrendous they try to treat women, and especially women in her positions and other women in other positions, of just like, they're batshit crazy, and it's really fun to just watch her be like, you're an idiot, you're dumb, you don't matter. In terms of like the little small stuff too, and even on a broader spectrum, like you could go into it a million different levels. But anyways, Drew is best known as the internet's crusader for women, and is at the head of a new generation of entertainment's rising stars. With more than 9 million followers across her entire social media platforms, she soon realized that men on social media were creating sexist content aimed at like disparaging women, and also containing rampant fat phobia, racism, and other forms of bigotry with very real-life consequences. So it didn't take her long to kind of step into the role of the unofficial watchdog for misogyny, and her signature laugh, which is an absolute cackle mess. I love it. Her and Trixie Mattel in the same room, can't handle it. Hilarious. The way she wrote her book, Loud, is kind of part manual, part manifesto, and also part memoir. It is a summoning cry to rid the internet and the hearts, minds, and lives of terrible men, and to create a space to fight outdated patriarchal ideals. Above all, it makes it clear that Drew's fearsome laugh is more of a mission and a kind of life philosophy, a strategy for self-confidence from the inside out, and also a pathway to once and for all remove men from the center of how women and femmes should think about themselves. So if you don't know who Drew is, please go check her out. I love her. She's fucking dangerously smart and hilarious, and this is a perfect book for all the girls, gays, and theys out there, honestly. After that, I read a kind of YA novel. It is called A Bon Me for Two. This is a sweet, sapphic romance about two foodies in love. Viv meets Lan while studying abroad in Vietnam, and they spend the semester unraveling their family's histories and eating all the street food in Saigon. So in Saigon, Lan is always trying to be kind of the perfect daughter, dependable, and willing to care for her widowed mother and their bond Me stall. Her secret passion, however, is Banh Mi for Two. It's kind of like a food blog that she started with her father, but has stopped updating it since he did pass. And meanwhile, Vietnamese American Viv has never been to Vietnam, and her parents rarely talk about the homeland that clearly haunts them and many of other Vietnamese Americans for obvious fucking reasons. So Viv secretly goes to Vietnam for a study abroad program for her freshman year of college. And here she's determined to figure out why her parents left and kind of try to see everything she's seen on her favorite food blog, which also happens to be a Banh Mi for Two. So Viv and Lan meet in Saigon. They kind of like strike a deal, and Lan starts showing Viv around the city. And Lan is a very important figure in this. She really does help kind of piece together Viv's life story and her mother's life story through all these photographs and old memories. And in turn, Viv kind of encourages Lan to start writing again. So they enter this like food blogging contest. And slowly, as they explore the city and their past, Viv and Lan fall in love. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was truly an adorable read. It had a very unique, very cool setting, and the story was also unique and very sweet. After seeing Banh Mi written 1,000 times, I wanted 1,000 banh mi sandwiches. I'm not even kidding. The moment I finished this book, I went and got banh mi, and it was fucking delicious. After that, I read Dragon Fruit. This is a dazzling, romantic fantasy inspired by Pacific Island mythology. In the old tales, it is written that the egg of a sea dragon fruit, holds within its power to undo a person's greatest sorrow. An unwanted marriage, a painful illness, and an unpaid debt gone. But as with all things that are promised the moon and stars and offer hope when hope is gone, the tale comes with a warning. Every wish demands a price. Hanalei is the cherished daughter of an old island family, but when her father steals a sea dragon egg meant for an Align princess, she is forced into a life of exile. In the years that follow, Hanalei finds solace in kind of studying the majestic sea dragons that roam the Nominomi Sea, until one day an encounter with a female dragon offers her what she desires most: a chance to return home and to right the terrible wrong. We're gonna call this character Sam, because it is a lot of characters and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciations. And when you're reading a book and sometimes you don't have the audiobook, it's really hard to pronounce things unless you have someone who is Pacific Islander to tell you how to pronounce something correctly. So we're gonna call him Sam, which is kind of what they nickname him in the book anyways. He is the last remaining prince, and he can never inherit the throne because it is a matriarchal society. With his mother ill and his grandmother nearing the end of her reign, Sam is left with two options: to marry or to find a cure for the sickness that has plagued his mother for 10 long years. When a childhood companion returns from exile, she brings with her something he has not felt in a very long time: hope. But Hanalei and Sam are not the only ones searching for the dragon fruit. And kind of as they battle enemies both near and far, there's another danger they cannot escape, and that is of the dragon fruit itself. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was a beautiful ancestor story. It had an insane amount of mythology that I've never heard of before, and then I kind of went and did some more research on my own after it because it was so fascinating. I really enjoyed how detailed and vivid the author did get. It was an incredible amount of story writing in this, which made it very easy to picture everything. I really did love Hanalei. She was just gorgeous inside out. It's honestly a story that I will remember for a very, very long time, and this, I would say, is the perfect read for AAPI month. I leaned into another R.F. Kuang book, a very highly recommended book that is a series that a lot of people really do love. It's called The Poppy War. And if you don't know what The Poppy War is, it is an epic historical military fantasy inspired by the bloody history of China's 20th century and filled with treachery and magic. When Rin aced the Keiju, the empire-wide kind of test to find out like who's the most talented youth to learn and to be pushed into the academics, Rin being chosen was a shock to everyone. It shocked the test officials, who couldn't believe that the war orphan from Rooster Province could pass without cheating. It shocked Rin's guardians, who believed that they'd finally be able to marry her off and further their criminal enterprise, and also to Rin herself, who realized that she was finally free of servitude and despair that kind of made up her daily existence. But was even more surprising is the fact that she got into Singard, which is the most elite military school in Nikon. However, surprises aren't always that good, because being a dark-skinned peasant girl from the south is not an easy thing at Singard. She was targeted from the outset by rival classmates for her color, her poverty, and gender. So Rin discovers she possesses a lethal and unearthly power, an aptitude for the nearly mythical art of shamanism. Exploring the depths of her gift with the help of seemingly insane teachers and proactive substances, Rin learns that gods long thought dead are very much alive, and that mastering control over those powers could really mean more than just surviving in her school. For a while, the Nikari Empire is at peace. The Federation of Mugen still kind of lurks across the Narrow Sea, and the militarily advanced Federation occupied Nikon for decades after the First Poppy War, and only barely lost the continent to the Second. And while most of the people are complacent to go about their lives, and a few are aware that a third Poppy War is just sparks away, Rin's powers may be the only way to kind of save her people and keep the peace. But as she finds out more kind of about the god who has kind of chosen her, who ends up being this like vengeful phoenix, she fears that winning the war may cost her her humanity. and that it also might be too late to even be saved. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a fantastic read. It is a very long read. The writing is great and the characters are really strong and rememberable, and it is one of those series that I see why it has all the hype. It deserves all the hype 100%, and I eventually will finish the trilogy as well. It was a very different shift from reading Yellowface, I will say that, because I love when authors have such a dynamic perspective of being able to write something so, I would say, relatable and in this like 21st century, dealing with technology as in Yellowface and kind of behind the scenes of publishing, etc., and then be able to completely switch it to a full fantasy realm, like thousands and thousands of years back. Like, I love a good dynamic with an author. So if you're into books that are fantasy and rather thick, Poppy War is definitely for you. After kind of diving into a thicker book, I wanted to kind of read something that wasn't as focusing in terms of like remembering all the details, making sure you know like which empire is which. I moved on to Women of Good Fortune by Sophie Wan. This is set against a high society Shanghai wedding. It's a heartfelt, funny, dazzling novel about a reluctant bride and her two best friends, each kind of with their own motives and kind of fed up with the way that society treats women, and they forge a plan to steal all of the gift money on the big day. If you don't know much about like Chinese weddings or the traditions that they have with red envelopes and things like that, please dive more into research offline and on your own time, because it's a big, important piece in this story. You don't necessarily have to know a lot about it, but it does help. So Lulu has always been taught that money is the ticket to a good life. So when Shanghai's most eligible bachelor surprises her with a proposal, the only acceptable answer is, of course, yes, even if the voice inside of her has been screaming and saying no. His family's fortune would solve all of her parents' financial woes, but Lulu isn't ready for love. She doesn't want to get married. And the only people she can confide in are her two best friends, who are career-minded Rena, who is kind of tired of being passed over for a promotion as her kind of like biological clock ticks away as well, and then Jane, who is a sharp-tongued, luxury-chasing housewife, desperate to divorce her shitty-ass husband and trade up. Each of them desire something different, whether it's freedom, time, beauty, and none of them can get it without money. And they all figured out that Lulu's wedding is their golden opportunity. It's the social event of the season, so it means more than enough cash gifts to kind of transform their entire lives. So to steal the money on the big day, all they needed is kind of like a trustworthy crew and a brilliant plan. But as the plot grows increasingly complicated and the relationships are caught in kind of a crossfire, the women are forced to face that having it all might come at a very steep price. This was a 5-star read for me. It was an insanely great read. It really gave me like Crazy Rich Asians mixed with Ocean's 8. And if you don't know what Ocean's 8 is, it is like the Ocean's 11, but it's just like an all-female cast. Highly recommend watching it if you haven't already. It has Rihanna in it. Go watch it. But yeah, so Crazy Rich Asians mixed with Ocean's 8 is like the best way to describe this book. All of the female characters in the book were awesome. The two best friends were awesome. Lulu was fucking awesome. And I ended up reading this whole book in one sitting because I couldn't put it down, because the writing was so good, and because it was so like, give me more, give me more, give me more. And even though there's a lot of things going on while you're reading, the story does slowly develop, and that's just awesome. The pacing truly was perfect, and I would definitely read this again. After that, I read I Leave It Up to You, and I didn't know what to expect about this book. It was recommended to me in terms of like, I had no idea what the book was about. They just were like, this book is really great, you should read it. So I took the word for it and I read it. It is a novel about love, family, and the art of sushi that asks, what if you could return to the point of a fateful choice, wiser than before, and find the courage to forge a new path? Remember, like, all these summaries are like what's specifically on the book or on the Goodreads descriptions and things like that. A coma can change a man, but the world Jack Jr. awakens to is one he barely recognizes. His advertising job is history, his Manhattan apartment is gone, and the love of his life has left him behind. He's been asleep for 2 years, with no one to turn to. He realized it's been 10 years since he last saw his family. So lost and disoriented, he makes a reluctant homecoming back to the bustling Korean American enclave of Fort Lee, New Jersey, back into the waiting arms of his parents, who are operating under the illusion that he never left in the first place, which is also kind of a crazy concept, and back to Joja, which is the name of their ever struggling sushi restaurant that he was set to inherit before he ran away from it all. As he steps back into the life that he's kind of abandoned, he's learning his appa's life lessons over crates of tuna on kind of like 4 a.m. fish runs. He's figuring out what's all happened since he left behind the omakase counter while his Uma is kind of tallying how bad the customer rate was. And he's also sparring with his recovering alcoholic brother, James, and kind of embraces his new role like this is where he's meant to be. He also has a romantic interest with this male nurse who took care of him throughout his entire stay at the hospital. So it kind of does revolve around their love story. And I really enjoy the setup of it because you're not just getting flashbacks, like you're immediately like getting like he just woke up from a coma. He's talking to this one person. He's trying to figure out like how long it's been. Oh my God, it's been so long. And he falls back into with his family and trying to reconnect that way while also being connected to this male nurse that he is falling in love with, and also falling in love with sushi again and the restaurant business again. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a very unique perspective. It was also a very adorable love story that also really did make me sad at times. And if you love the like caregiver tropes and gay love and like undeserving thoughts and undeserving love and kind of like that element, you're going to love this book. However, readers, beware. This is very important. Beware. You will be craving sushi the entire time. And I think this would be such a fun read while you're enjoying a fresh omakase. Like, just with the banh mi book, I was eating banh mi immediately after I read it. After I finished, I leave it up to you. I went and got sushi because I just, like, oh my God, the way the author described even, like, the cuts. Ugh. Delicious. Delicious read. I really did love that the story kind of questions, like, why do we run from those we love? Why do we still love those who kind of, like, run from us? It's just such a very intriguing read from a perspective of, like, you've been gone for 2 years because you've been in a coma and, like, the love of your life didn't stay with you. Your family has no idea because they've been coming and trying, but they still have a business to run. And it's, like, truly being fully alone and then falling for the person that took care of you the whole time is, like, just adorable. After that, I read Pocahontas, and I know it's spelled very weird, but it is actually called Pocahontas. The author wanted it to be spelled like that because of the nature of the topic of the book, which we will get into. This was an American debut of kind of an acclaimed young poet as she explores her identity as a 21st century indigenous woman. And the author's name is Tayi Tibble. I completely forgot to say that. But poem by poem, Tibble carves out a bold new way of kind of engaging history, of kind of straddling modernity and ancestry and desire and exploitation. It has a lot of themes that are very important. It's intimate, it's moving, it's virtuistic and hilarious. Most of the time it is actually very hilarious. So with this debut novel, Pocahontas, she challenges kind of a dazzling array of mythology, whether that be Greek, Maori, feminist, kind of Kiwi, peeling them apart, respinning them in her modern terms. Her poems move from like rhythmic discussions about the Kardashians and sugar daddies and Twilight to exquisite renderings of like the natural world and precise emotions. A specific line is, the lump in her throat swelled like a sea that threatened to take him from her, and she had to swallow hard. But then again, you're putting in modern terms like Kardashian, sugar daddies, Twilight series. Like it's kind of such a crazy read that is immersive and then takes you out of it, puts you back in. It's a wild ride. Tibble is also kind of a master narrator of teenage womanhood. It's exhilarating highs and devastating lows, and her like high camp aesthetics correlate to the like overflowing beauty and irony and ruination of her surroundings. And there are these like warm, provocative, and profoundly original poems which are written by a woman for whom diving into the wreck means like taking on new assumptions, namely that it is not radical to write from a world in which the effects of colonization, land, work, and gender are like obviously connected. And along the way in her poems, Tibble scrutinizes perception and how she is a Maori woman who fits into trends and stereotypes and popular culture. It's very unapologetic, and I really do appreciate that about that. I gave that a 3.75 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic poetry if you're really into poetry in general. If you're not, you probably will hate this book. It honestly also tackled topics that I didn't even expect to, like the fetishization of island women. And I use the term islanders as kind of like a loose general word, only because this truly is such a major fetish in many indigenous communities. And then like the section about sugar daddies, the Twilight comparisons, and the general take on how like islanders don't want to date within their own community, and some are brainwashed into thinking that white is best. This was also a very great read for AAPI month. I really did enjoy the writing style of all the poems too. Like I said, they're blunt and unapologetic and like crash at times, and I really love it. And it is also like uniquely modern, which is why I see she won so many awards and like why this is praised so highly. It's worth a pickup if you're into poetry. Hell, honestly, I think it's worth the pickup even if you aren't into poetry. I believe you should be opening your mind and your spaces. Do it with this book. After that, I switched back into a regular novel with Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. This is a deeply personal novel about race, pop culture, immigration, assimilation, and escaping the roles they are forced to play. Willis Wu doesn't perceive himself as the protagonist in his own life. He's merely generic Asian man. Sometimes he gets to be background oriental, making a weird face, or even disgraced son. Mind you, I'm reading the description of the book. But always he is relegated to basically being a prop. And every day he leaves his tiny room in a Chinatown SRO and enters the Golden Palace restaurant, where Black and White, a cop show, is being filmed. He's a bit of a player here too, but he dreams of being Kung Fu Guy, the most respected role that anyone who looks like him can attain. So after stumbling into the spotlight, Wills finds himself launched into this wider world than he's ever known, discovering that not only the secret history of Chinatown, but the buried legacy of his own family. I rated this a 3.25 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed the concept of the book. It's very heavily leaning on stereotypes that many actors are stuck on, especially anyone who is not a white straight male. And after this, I went and watched the actual show. It is on Hulu/Disney if you guys want to check it out. Has a lot of really good actors in it as well. And the TV show was great. It's very connected to the book, and I do enjoy that when shows and movies are connected to the actual book and not just completely rewritten and different. The book is also very, 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 very multi-layered with symbolism and metaphors. And it seems like every single character, I would say almost every single character present, deals with a lot of the micro and mega aggressions while also trying to like break the barriers of like, let's just say like the typical Asian guy number one. It's such a different facet while you're reading, because not only are you getting a perspective from the main character or the Asian community, you're also getting perspective from the Black community and the Asian community on that, and then the white lady as the cop, and like it's a lot. And after that read, I switched to another poetry book called If They Come For Us by Fatima Asghar. In this powerful and imaginative, also a debut poetry collection, Fatima nakedly captures the experiences of being a young Pakistani Muslim woman in America by braiding together personal and marginalized people's histories. After being orphaned as a young girl, she grapples with the kind of like coming of age as a woman without the guidance of a mother, and questions of sexuality and race, and navigating a world that put a target on her back. Her poems at once kind of like bear anguish and joy, vulnerability and compassion, while exploring the many facets of violence and how it persists within us, and how it's inherited across generations, and how it manifests into our relationships with friends and family, and in our own understanding of identity. She uses a lot of experimental forms and a mix of like lyrical and very brash language as well, that kind of confronts her own understanding of identity and place and belonging. And opening the book, the first poem is extremely heavy. It is insanely heavy. And I knew immediately, like, I'm gonna finish this. It's so profound and intense. And after that, I could not stop. I was just consuming every word and intention in this entire collection. And honestly, I have no words. There's not enough words in my brain to articulate like how beautifully heartbreaking the entire collection is. It's like, and also on the other spectrum, it's like shockingly horrific. And you can't even say shockingly, it's just horrific. Your mouth will drop. Like I was the whole time just gasping, like, oh my God. Like, it was like perfectly written. Every single poem was amazing, which is also why Fatima got so many awards for it. And I highly, highly, highly recommend everyone read this one. Doesn't matter what month you're reading it, please read this. If you're not into poetry, please, I don't care, at least read this one. And I would read so many more from this author. Like, it's tragically gorgeous, you know, like you're hearing such profound, like, oh my God, but the way it's written is like, oh my God, you know, like, ugh. But I did have like 3 lines that I saved. I will say it's a little difficult because sometimes I'm listening to audiobooks and sometimes I'm reading physical books and sometimes I'm doing both. And I believe I think I was cleaning the dishes. So I was listening to the audiobook with this. And dishes is kind of a simple task. You can kind of focus and really listen to the words. And I was having to like rip my dish gloves off and like type in my phone what that line was and like play it back because I was like, oh my God, I love this sentence. Here's one of the lines from the book. What is land but land? A camp, but a camp. Sanctuary, but another grave. God. And then that, and paired with the poem it was specifically written with. And then I found another one. He's not my president, but I live in a country whose sun is war. Are you kidding? And then also my favorite poem of the whole book, like even just it being funny or like hee hee ha ha, or also like not as like heavily serious, but also is I really enjoyed the poem called Oh Pussy, the Things I've Pulled From You. Modern. It's not like when people think of poetry, they're thinking of like, you know, a William Shakespeare-esque where you're getting bored to death just from listening to it, or it's like these sonnets that you're just like, oh, it's written in like 14th century English. Like, no, modern poetry is fucking awesome. And also, fun fact, Fatima is the co-creator of the Emmy-nominated web series called Brown Girls, which is like super cute. You should check it out. But after that, we came to my very first DNF in a hot little minute. It is called Brown Girl Ghosted. I'm not even gonna give you a summary because it's just not worth your time. It is a YA book, but I did DNF it at 30% because it was so fucking bad. It was so bad. I rated it a 1 out of 5 stars. It felt like it really had potential in like the first chapter and then it just went away. And obviously, of course, it's a YA book, so you also kind of give it some grace, but this seemed more like a messy, cheesy CW TV show, kind of filled with like so many overdone tropes and stereotypes and dialogues. It was just yikes, and I don't want to talk about it anymore because it wasn't good, and I'm just not worth your time. Not worth your time. After that, I went and reread 2 Christopher Moore books because his new book, Anima Rising, came out during May, which I did end up picking up. So I kind of was like, okay, I got a nice little gist of AAPI month. There was still a lot that I wanted to read that was on my list, but a lot of them were, when I was trying to find them on the Libby app, they were like 10-week holds, so I was like, dang, okay, I'll have to get them next time. But I did get a nice little list for this month. Got some diverse reads, whether it was like a regular book or poetry. So I read 2 Christopher Moore books, which I read last year, and I've read many times, A Dirty Job and Secondhand Souls. In terms of thinking that I'm gonna be reading Anima Rising, that in fact did not happen. I read the 2 Christopher Moore books, I picked up Anima Rising, and then I discovered this amazing series called Dungeon Crawler Carl. And that's all I can say about the book. Just, I just want to scream. That's all I can think about the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. That's it. So, the monthly recap ends here because I'm going to be doing an entire video about Dungeon Crawler Carl, okay? So stay tuned for that. If not, it's right here. Bing, bing, bing. If not, if it's not popped up on the screen, just, it's probably already in my recent videos, or it's coming out, or whatever. Anyways, I'm doing a whole, like, deep dive on that because it is insane and crazy and all of that jazz. Oh, and there's also 6 books. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then a 7th book that I'm actually waiting to read until it actually comes out in print on, like, physically in September, even though it is already out on Kindle Unlimited and on Audible, and you can read those and listen to them. However, I did just read 6 Dungeon Crawler Carl books in a row in less than like a week, I believe. So I kind of was like, I'm gonna pause right here. But that is everything I read in the month of May, and my little reviews and recaps and yada yada yada. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to follow me on Goodreads or Fable. I like Fable so much better. It's like way more aesthetically pleasing. It's like just, I love it way more. Go check Fable out. It's better than Goodreads. But yeah, that's all. Next month will be obviously June, so we'll be doing a bunch of Pride Month books. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or night, wherever you are. Stay hydrated, get some rest, eat some food, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye!